Well, good day to everyone, and thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your day to spend some time with us here at Manage Engine. Obviously, you are attending the webinar because of the topic we're going to talk about today, and I'm thankful for that. We need to spend more time worried about insider threats and not just throwing concepts at them, but actually digging deep into the operating system, making sure that we get the right reports, and then configuring settings that are being exploited by users inside our organization. So we have a lot to go over today. Just to give you a little bit of startup logistics, this is being recorded, and you should receive in your inbox in the next day or so a link to that recording. We encourage you to review it as well as share it with others. So please share our recordings with as many people as you can. That way everyone can learn the concepts and we can all get more secure. Another key factor is throughout the webinar, we will be taking your questions. So if you do have a question in line as I'm going through information, please just use your GoToWebinar Q&A on the panel, and someone in the background will answer that. I have a team working with me answering those questions, so I want to thank them for that. So that's pretty much it for logistics, except for who in the heck am I, right? My name is Derek Melber. I am the Chief Technology Evangelist for the AD Solutions team here at Manage Engine, and that gives me the privileged opportunity to travel the world helping administrators, helping organizations understand Active Directory better. And not only Active Directory, but group policy, security, their Windows servers, endpoints, and how it all works together so that we can improve security and efficiency on an administrator's daily basis. I'm also an MVP. Currently, I'm an Active Directory MVP, and I've been an MVP for about 17 years, both in Active Directory and group policy. Which gives me great exposure inside of Microsoft to different things, which at the end of this, I'll kind of tell you how you can take advantage of that. We do have also some resources that I want to share with you. These resources I think are very valuable for you, especially with today's topic of insider threats and related to security. The first thing that I want to point you to is our blog. And to get to our blog, you simply come to our main landing page, hover over support, and go to blogs. You'll see quite a few blogs, different aspects of our organization blog daily, sometimes weekly. We on the Active Directory team typically blog about once a week. So if you come in, search on Active Directory, you will find basically good information about all areas of Active Directory, whether it be passwords, whether it be security, whether it be synchronization to the cloud. All these things are very vital for today's organizations, which we try to help you kind of sift through that information. So please come out and check out our blog. Secondly, I want to point you to a security hardening site. You may want to follow along with this. If you open up your browser, go to manageengine.com. hover over products and go to the lower left-hand corner, you'll see security hardening for Active Directory. This particular site was built kind of as a response to some technologies that Microsoft created a couple of years ago called JIT and GIA. We at Manage Engine found those technologies to be a bit cumbersome and most likely things that most organizations wouldn't actually implement. Over the last couple of years, that has basically come true, that very, very, very few, and when I mean few, I mean less than 5 total over 4 years have actually implemented this that we have seen. Now, I'm sure that more than that have actually implemented it, but they're just too cumbersome. So what we did was we said, it's important to secure Active Directory, so why not give a recipe on how to do that? So that's what we did. And at the bottom of this page, of the site, you'll see all these security areas. And if you click on one, you'll see a list of blogs dedicated to securing that particular area in Active Directory, as well as your Windows servers. So all this information is free. All this information I feel is extremely valid. I teach these concepts around the world every year and have been for years. And I get great feedback that this information is valuable. So please take advantage of this. One more resource I want to point you to, and that is our Dummies book on securing privileged access. This has been highly successful, I think, because it's difficult to know where privileges are granted and how to configure those privileges correctly in Active Directory. So we wrote a book on it. It's free for you. Download it, read through it. It's a pretty short read. If you ride the train, if you're in a taxi for, on the way to the airport, it's quite an easy read. Please download it, take a look, share it with your colleagues, get them to understand the importance of privileged access in Active Directory as well. All right, so that covers kind of our resources, but I do want to mention one more thing. We are actually towards the end of our 2018 World Tour, and we have 3 more stops in the United States. We'll be in LA, we'll be in Houston, and we'll be in Atlanta. That is actually in the middle of November. Also, we will be in Chicago in 2 weeks for our East Coast User Conference. If any of these cities are near you, I highly encourage you to go to our website. I'm actually just going to show you where this is. Go to our website, manageengine.com, go all the way to the bottom of the site, go to events, and under events, you can find our user conference here, which is somewhere, let's see, user conference is somewhere in here. There it is, okay? And then if you go back to the top and you search on seminars, you'll find our 80 seminars. And actually, if you search on webinars, you'll find information on webinars as well. So these are some awesome things that are coming your way. I highly encourage you to sign up for these and join us. They never miss, and everyone walks away with great information and things that they can immediately implement when they get back to work. All right? Excellent. So let's jump to our topic. Our topic today is the insider threat. I do not want to negate the outside threat, but I do want to focus on the inside threat. And it's important to understand the foundation of an insider threat, because if we can understand the foundation, it'll help us to secure the areas in which we can be attacked. So let's talk about the makeup of an insider attack or threat. One of the main issues, and one of the things that I discourage you to do, is focus on individuals or even groups of individuals when trying to protect your network infrastructure. Because yes, IT, developers, the help desk, these employees understand IT and can attack better. However, we can't negate the clerk or the intern or the person, director of HR. Anyone can be an insider threat. So what I would rather do is, instead of focusing on the individual, I want to focus on the core security. Because if we can get core security of your endpoints, your domain controllers, your Windows servers, and the infrastructure of your Windows environment secure, now we have a much better chance of negating anyone that might be a threat versus focusing on individuals. So what do we need to do? Well, this is that foundation I was talking about. I want you to imagine, I want you to consider what your users currently have. Every user has a computer that's on the network, okay? Those computers that are on the network are joined to Active Directory, which means that every user has read access into Active Directory. That's right, every user in your organization has read access into Active Directory. What does that mean? Well, instead of explaining it, let me just go show you. I have a Windows desktop here, okay? I'm going to log on. Oops. And I'm going to launch an application that I downloaded. This is actually a Microsoft application, but there's tons of them out there. And I'm going to make a connection. Now, this can be done by literally any user in the organization. Connection, connect over to a domain controller name. Done. Then they go and they bind. A bind is authentication, and they're going to bind with their current credentials. Done, authenticated. Then they're going to view the Active Directory structure, which in LDAP syntax for me is 80 solutions, DC equals 80 solutions, comma, DC equals demo, which my domain name is 80solutions.demo. Done. And now they have a full view of Active Directory. Any user can do this. Any user by default can do this. Now what can they do? Well, they can get a list of all the domain controller names. They can go in and they can get a list of all of the domain admins, right? Members, right here, all domain admins. This information is readily available. It doesn't take a rocket science expert to go in and do this. It doesn't take an experienced hacker to do this. But I guarantee you, your internal employees that want to attack you know about this and are gathered information. They probably have everything gathered already, okay? So it's difficult to hide the information that you have because you can't go in and just alter this. Now, let me show you where these configurations are set up. And I do not want you to break Active Directory. Trust me. If I go to Active Directory users and computers, I go to my domain name, properties, security, authenticated users have read access. You cannot disable this. If you disable this, you're going to see Active Directory crumble because your objects need access. Users, computers need access to read Active Directory to make decisions and gain access to resources. So this is not possible to hide the information. So keep that in mind as we move forward, okay? Now, you also have to consider what you have done. That's right. We as administrators have made configurations and choices. What level of access did you provide the user at initial creation of the user account? Over time, granting them access to resources for projects, applications, services, data? Are your users local administrators, right? And then on their endpoints, can they install applications? All of these concepts have to be determined and thought about so that we understand what we're dealing with the insider threat. I mean, if a user can install an application and then use that application to attack Active Directory, that's different than a user not being able to install any application and all they can attack Active Directory with is what's there by default. Huge difference. So we need to understand what we have and try to negate wherever possible. But where we can't negate, we have to be able to secure the environment around those users. So this is what I consider to be the core foundational concepts. But now let's jump into the weeds. Let's actually get into the details. I want to focus first on your endpoints. And you may be thinking, why the endpoint? Well, if it's an insider attack, where are they attacking from? I'm going to guess from an endpoint. So let's actually focus on desktops, not servers, desktops. And what I want to do is first of all talk about what's there by default. You have an administrator account. You have two options. You can disable this account or you can leave it enabled. Let's first talk about the disabling of this account. To do this, I'm going to jump over to my desktop and I'm going to show you my local SAM, my Security Accounts Manager. So I come in here, I go to my list of users, and you'll see that I have administrator, which is disabled. I have Derek, I have guest, which is disabled, and I have a test account. The test account is worthless. I just created that. It's worthless. But you may have accounts that are there that you're like, what's this for? In my opinion, there are very few, and when I say very few, less than 1% of instances where local accounts are required on desktops, okay? First action item, I'm gonna give you action items as we go through this presentation. First one, when we're done, I want you to pick 10 workstations at random, connect, and see if they have any local accounts. If they do, question why they're there, all right? Excellent. Second, when you're looking at those local accounts, see if administrator is disabled. I'm going to guess that it will be. I think it was with Windows Vista, Microsoft at installation of the endpoint actually disabled administrator and forced you to create a new account for administration. In my case, that was Derek. So Derek should be an administrator, and you'll notice here, Derek is an administrator, okay? So Make sure there are no users other than the default 3. Make sure that if administrator is disabled, that the other account that is enabled is a local administrator. Excellent. Now, the other side of the coin is if you're going to enable administrator and use that as your administrative account. Now, this is an important fact. The fact is that every administrator account, and when I say administrator, I mean the name administrator, has the exact same ending of the SID, the security identifier. It ends in 500 on every machine ever installed by Microsoft. Okay? Back to Windows 95, all the way through to what we have today. Okay? Even in Active Directory, it ends in 500. This is one of the reasons why Microsoft disabled the account. So if you are going to leave administrator there, you have to take precautions. One precaution you have to consider is when you provision new endpoints, what password do you use for administrator? I hope you didn't say the same, because attackers know that and they take advantage of that. So if you are going to leave administrator in place, I suggest you use a tool from Microsoft called LAPS, L-A-P-S, Local Administrator Password Solution. It stores the local administrator password in Active Directory, and per machine, you can pull it out with a command. Okay? So AD controls that local administrator password. So these are some things that we can do for your local users on all of your endpoints. Now, let's move to groups, because we also have to protect groups. You'll notice the full list. Almost all of these are by default, except for SQL, of course. And which ones do we need to be concerned about? I think there are 3. Remote desktop users, backup operators, and of course, administrators. Let's discuss administrators. When you open up administrators on an endpoint, you should see administrator and Derek. You should see domain admins, and in most cases, that's it. Now, you might have an enterprise application, an AD application that communicates with the endpoint, and during installation, it put the service account inside of the local administrators. You would know that, okay? What I don't want to see is this. Why is Derek from the domain in the local administrators group on this machine? Well, some of you may be saying, well, that's because this is Derek's machine, and in order for Derek to perform actions on this machine like running applications, Derek has to be a local administrator. We're going to come back and talk about that in just a second. But you should only see accounts in here that you fully know should be there. If anyone is in here, otherwise, it's suspect, and you should evaluate if that's what you want. Okay? Now, let's come back and talk about the situation where you have placed the end user's Active Directory user account in the local administrators group. This is a very common action, but a very lethal action. If at all possible, you want to remove this user out of here. Why? Because everything that this user touches in email and on the internet, that is malware, ransomware, anything, has local administrative access back to this machine. It's just the way it works. So you need to be very cautious about this, and I suggest you come up with a solution to get your users out of the local administrators. Okay? Excellent. So at this point, we have discussed protecting the local administrator account, new users, and the local administrators group. Okay? But I don't want you to just report. I want you to monitor and alert. Because the reality is, if you can actually set up what I told you to set up, and you don't have anyone inside of administrators except for who should be there, no one else should be added unless there is a known change. So if someone is added to this group, it is rare. Since it's rare that someone is added, or even if someone is removed, right? So let's remove. This is not a common task. So what I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you have the ability to look at when users are added or removed from the machine. You must have a tool that can alert you to these types of actions. Okay? I have to know when a user is added to a group, removed from a group, or user rights are assigned. All of these things are important. I also want to be able to look at, and I don't have that in my favorites, but I'm going to show you anyway. I also want to be able to know when a new user is created, recently created users, modified users. I want to know this. The local user can't do this. And this is a rare change. So what you need to do is you need to set up auditing on your endpoints and make sure that you're tracking this behavior. How do you do that? Another action item. On those 10 machines that you picked as a sampling, I want you to go to those machines and run secpol, seccpol.msc. This will tell you what the current configurations are for your audit policy, okay? Make sure that you have auditing set up. Now, you can have either audit policy or you can have down here these configurations. You have to have auditing set up so you can track it. The reason you need it set up is so that when a change occurs, you can have a SIM solution like AD Audit Plus easily be able to go in and show you information about things that are changing inside of that machine. This is a requirement that you do this, okay? So make sure that you have group policy set up to alter all of your endpoints audit policy, then come into AD Audit Plus, and you're simply going to go in and you're going to configure the workstations, right? You're going to configure the workstations to make sure that you have the correct information. And now, anytime anything changes, you get that information. All right? Awesome. So those are some things to do at the endpoint. One more thing. We have to consider user rights. User rights are per machine. Let me show you what user rights are. Again, I go to secpol, shows me what the current user rights are, and this is a list of the user rights that are on this machine. The user rights are the same for virtually every machine. There's about 35 of them. But notice some of these powerful things. Backup files, change a token, allow logon as a service, right? Shut down the machine. These are important tasks that are machine-wide. These rarely change. So if you get an alert that a user right changed, you will know that it is an important change and you need to go look at that particular change. You just have to have a SIM that understands this level, and it's easy to set up. Everything that I'm showing you right now is a predetermined report. They're here. They're just here, okay? I didn't create these reports. I just organized them into my favorites, okay? So when it comes to our endpoints, we must secure the common ways that someone gets privileges, and we must monitor when those things change, because they shouldn't change often. And that's an important point that I want to mention. Everything that I recommend to you is geared towards limiting the number of alerts you get. I don't want you to be overwhelmed with alerts because there's too many false positives. I want you to only get an alert when it's really something so you can take immediate action, okay? All right, now let's move into Active Directory and talk about some security there. First, I want to talk about logons. What we need is a solution to help us see failed logons. We have to have some way of viewing when we have a failed logon repetition that's hitting a threshold, or when certain users are failing to log on. So here you'll notice that I have a report of failed logons. And I want to know the details of from which client, which user it was, why, all the other details. This is important information. I also need to have the ability to go in and say, all right, I want to know logon failures based on users. And I want to be able to look at the count to see where those things are coming from. If this is all in the same time frame, and you have two different IP ranges, that's going to indicate that you're under attack. Someone is attacking you from inside and possibly from outside, or two different networks. But a user can't be in two places at one time. Okay? So we need reports and alerts to help us know when things are happening. So if a user is over here, right? So let's go to my desktop. Let's log off. And let's see. Right? So I have fail logons, and I'm going to hit at some point the threshold for a lockout, probably, right? So I'm going to come back over here, and I'm going to say I want to look at logon failures. I want to be able to see that Patsy is doing this. I want to see logon failures based on user. Here's Patsy. I want to see what's happening with the issue with Patsy. These are all bad passwords. Okay? Now, did Patsy actually get locked out? Well, Patsy right now is kind of in a conundrum, right? This account over on this machine really doesn't know what to do. But the other thing is, if I hit my threshold for lockouts, I need to be able to see what's happening. So I need to be able to go to my lockout analyzer to see, all right, Tom actually got locked out. Let's look at the details around Tom's lockouts. Let's analyze the information. All right, was it trying to get access to services, tasks, mappings? These are all information regarding where it can be configured. What are the recent logons? I want to see those. Is it OWA? Are they actually accessing something from OWA? Maybe it was Radius, and that's where they got locked out. These are important aspects that you need to be able to determine to analyze the attacks that are occurring internal. Because it may not be the actual user using their user account. It could be someone else using someone else's user account, but it's still an internal attack. And these reports become very important for you to be able to know what's going on. Okay? So we need to be able to look at repetitive fail logons and also look at locked out accounts. Let's move to a little bit different area within Active Directory. Let's look at group modifications. I want you, if nothing else, to focus on privileged groups. Action item. When you're done with this, by the end of this week, you are going to document all of your privileged groups. Here's how you do it. You're going to go to Active Directory. Inside of Active Directory, you're going to go to the users container, and you're going to list all of these that you consider to have privileges. That would include, in my opinion, DNS admins, domain admins, group policy creator owners, enterprise, and schema admins. You also need to go to built-in. Don't forget about built-in, because you have account operators, administrators, backup operators, event log readers. You have all of these privileged groups. These are all built in. These are default. Then you create a secondary list of privileged groups. That would include like SQL, SharePoint, any other applications that you have that put a group in Active Directory. Third, you need to go in and you need to look for your custom groups. Maybe the master admins, maybe the help desk technicians. Any group that has privileges, you're going to list. Because what I want you to do is I want you to monitor if they change membership. These groups shouldn't change membership often. But if someone goes into your enterprise admins and they add or remove a user, how do you know that that is occurring? You don't, unless you have a tool that sends you alerts and gives you the ability to look at reports right there. Bart was added. Okay? We need this level of detail. We need to know when these things are changing. This is important. We have to have this level of detail so that we can actually get the information out of the system. Every report can have an associated alert with it. We need to have this level so that we know what's happening in the background. And again, these things are powerful. So I can go in and I can customize these reports. So I can say, what is a privileged group? Not a problem. I go in here and say a privileged group is based on any group that's in this filter, and I add them in. So if you get a brand new group that's a privileged group, you come into the report, you add it in, and you're good to go. That's it. That's all you need to do, okay? Customization becomes a very important aspect when you're dealing with this type of solution, because it's a SIM solution, and you have to be able to narrow it down quickly and customize for your environment fast. All right, let's look at another issue that could be a problem with an insider attack. Active Directory delegation, which is the modification of ACLs in Active Directory. If someone goes in to Active Directory and they, let's say, for example, run the delegate control wizard on an OU, and they add in, let's say, the help desk technicians to be able to reset the passwords, is that something that you really wanted? How were you going to know that occurred? There's no way that you have the time to come in here to the security, look at advanced, look at HD text, and edit to see exactly what was said. You don't have the time to do that. I'm sorry. I don't want you to take the time to do that. But what you can do is you can have a solution in place, and that solution gives you the ability to know when OU permissions change. So I can get information about when OU permissions change. I can actually look at the new and old access control list. So we need to have a solution in place that informs us. That's the end. That's the theme of the story. Because you, as an administrator, can't see when things change. You aren't told when things change. But things change. It could be on purpose, or it could be an attack. If it's an insider attack and you aren't informed, you're in trouble. If it's a change that was an error and you weren't informed, you could be in trouble. Because users have a lot of access inside of Active Directory. They can find out what they can get access to. So you need to know who has access to what at all times, and getting these types of reports becomes very important for you to be able to do that. But we also have to not only consider user rights on our endpoints, we have to consider user rights on our domain controllers. The same concept for our domain controllers can be controlled, just like I showed you on our endpoints. Because user rights are configured per domain controller. So we need to know when they change. But we also need to know when files are accessed in an inappropriate way, or the access control list of critical files and folders are changed. That's exactly what AD Audit can do here as well, because I have a file audit option, and I can go in here and I can choose exactly what I'm going to track. So you just come in here and pick what you want to track, and then based on that, you can actually see reports of things that are changing in your environment. I can get a full list of everything that's changing in my environment with details, with maps, charts, giving me information about who made the change, when they made the change. This is important because we all know that ransomware, internal users trying to leak information, becomes an important aspect of what we need to protect. If your GDPR requirements include Europe users, well, gosh, you need to protect information about the personal information about your customers. All of this are things that you need to track. So we give you inside of AD Audit Plus an easy way to do this. And as I showed you here, it's not just Windows File Service, it's NetApp and EMC. So we're expanding that to just more than your Windows servers for file storage. So you need to really look at a variety of things. You need to look at your endpoints, the administrator account, the administrators, user rights, when users are created, when groups change membership. These are important because they rarely change. And when they do change, it could indicate that you're under attack. But of course, we have to spend most of our focus in Active Directory. We have to know who has privileges. We have to know when someone's trying to attack us through trying to, a brute force attack, a password spray attack, all these concepts we have to be looking for. We have to know when users get locked out and be able to track down, was it an attack or was it just someone's tablet that they didn't change the password and it locked them out again? Then we have to look at group modifications, ACL modifications, and then we have to look at specific files and when they're changed, when they're accessed, when things fall out of the norm. These are concepts that we absolutely need to consider, and AD Audit Plus gives you that solution. So where do you go from here? What are my recommendations that you go from here? Well, first and foremost, I suggest you start at our webpage. And I suggest you go to Products, Security Hardening, and you start working through these blue bars, and you start securing and hardening your Active Directory and Windows Server environment. Second, here's a little challenge for you. I suggest you get a stopwatch. Start it. Come in here to our website, go to Products, AD Audit Plus, download, install, configure, and get an alert. It's going to be less than 30 minutes. Now that's pretty powerful. If you can actually go from zero tracking to getting an alert on one particular setting in less than 30 minutes, that is impressive. Please, I encourage you. These are solutions that I highly recommend because they're powerful. If you have any questions about any of the content today, any questions about how to sign up for the webinars or the user conference, any questions about AD, group policy, security, email me. That's my email address. Part of my job is to answer your emails. I love it. I love to answer emails, and I love to solve problems for administrators around the world. I've been doing it for literally 18 years. So please allow me to help you get solutions to the problems that you're having, okay? If you have any other questions, you can email me. You can email the events team on the AD Solutions team. I want to thank you for your time. I'm going to let you get back to work. I'm going to get back to work on some other things I'm working on. I want to thank you for your time. I want to thank my coworkers for answering the questions as they came through. And until the next time I see you, whether it be in a webinar, a seminar, or a trade show, have a great rest of your day. Thank you very much.